Morning peeps, good morning everyone, how's everyone doing? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, like, share, subscribe. I had a couple of interesting conversations over the weekend that I forgot to tell you guys about. One was with Frank Warren, the other was with a guy called Steve Wood. Now a lot of you guys will probably know who Steve Wood is. For those that don't, he's a promoter that puts on a lot of small hall shows up and down the country. Very much the backbone of British boxing. If you weren't an amateur standout and Frank and Eddie or Sky at the time weren't fighting for your signature, you probably went to Steve Wood, and eventually when you sort of reeled off a few wins, you then signed with Eddie or Frank. Like Josh Warrington was with Steve Wood, Zelfa Barrett's been with Steve Wood, loads of fighters have been with Steve Wood. But yeah, interesting conversation with him. Frank was very colourful, very colourful, said a lot, as he always does, spoke about Hamza Shiraz, but spoke about Moses Itauma. I asked him about Moses because I think Moses is one of the best prospects in world boxing, not just heavyweight boxing, world boxing. And I said, what next for Moses after that win against Marius Vac? And he said, Moses wants Joseph Parker. And I was like, what? Like, no, what next? And he's like, no, Moses wants Joseph Parker, which is a crazy call out. Obviously, the fight ain't going to happen next. Probably will never happen. But the call out's interesting. These guys have been in the same camp a few times. I think Fury camps a few times. So there's no doubt they've sparred, they've shared the ring. And I'm guessing Moses has probably got the better of Joseph for a few rounds, maybe more than a few. And that's where the confidence to call out Joseph Parker comes from. Joseph Parker is at worst a top 6 heavyweight, could be higher, right? There are people, including myself, that make an argument to say he could be top 3, top 4. He isn't going to fight Moses. Like, regardless of what money's put on the table, he isn't going to fight that. He's looking for world titles or guys in and around he's ranking. He's not going to fight Moses. But I like the call out. Fuck it, why not? Like, you know, reach for the stars. I don't mind it at all. For Moses, it's going to be very interesting the route he goes. He's got so many different routes. He can see what happens with the Adelaide Akers situation. He can fight the winner or loser of Fabio Wardley, Fraser Clark. I prefer him going sort of the faded champion route. I don't mind that if he waits to see what happens with those 4 guys I mentioned. Charles Martin just springs to mind as someone that I think will give Moses good rounds, but I think Moses' youth and just energy will get to him. So I like that fight, but I have no sort of qualms whatsoever putting him in with Adelaide, Akers, Wardley or Clark. And to be honest with you, I think right now I make him favourite against, I was going to say all of them, at least 3 of them. I'm not going to say who, you have to work that one out yourself, but at least 3 of them. That's how highly I rate Moses Itauma. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next with him. Steve Wood was very interesting, revealed quite a lot, spoke about a couple of small hall shows he's got coming up. And I mentioned at the top there that he had looked after Zelfa Barrett. I still think he has an interest in Zelfa Barrett. I don't know what. I don't know if, you know, a lot of these fighters have managers and promoters, and there's clearly an interest in Zelfa. And because I know that, I said, look, what's going on with Zelfa? Zelfa's obviously coming off a good win. Some might say career best win last time out. I was like, what's going on with Zelfa? And they're like, they were offered the Shakur Stevenson fight. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Didn't know this. And you wouldn't know this. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that we just don't know about. Fighters turning down fights being offered to fighters, and there's so much that goes on. And again, we wouldn't have known this unless Steve Wood said it. And this wasn't a private conversation because I wouldn't reveal that. This was a conversation we had on air on TalkSport. So he's like, yeah, Zelfa was offered the fight, and I believe he said that Zelfa turned the fight down because the check wasn't what they wanted, Team Zelfa, including Steve Wood here, which does. There's a part of me that wanted to ask, like, how much was it? Like, you know, like, what are we talking? Did he turn down 7 figures? Was it 6 figures? Like, what did he turn down? Because, I mean, for you to turn down that opportunity, it must have been low, or lower than you expected, or lower based on what you've been told people get for a Riyadh season co-main event slot. Because that is a magnificent and fantastic opportunity for Zelfa. I mean, again, you're talking co-main on one of the biggest fight cards of the year. Co-main to Bivol Beterbiev, a fight that will be watched all over the world, and you're fighting Shakur Stevenson. So that means you've got all the eyeballs of American boxing on you right now. That again, the money must have been so low, because even if it's a bit lower than you expected, you've got to grab the opportunity. I'm sorry, you've got to grab it with both hands. Both. You've got to grab it, because Even if you lose, but put up a good showing, and that's what I think would probably happen. I think it'll be a bit too much, but I think Zelfa will come to fight. And by the way, Zelfa's big for a super feather. Zelfa, having seen both of these guys out of camp, Zelfa's as big, if not a bit bigger than Shakur. I'm being serious. I've seen both of these guys way out of camp, and they're both pretty big. But Zelfa's as big as Shakur Stevenson. So you're not giving anything away in size. Yes, you're moving up, but you're not giving anything away in size. Skills is a whole different conversation, but size-wise, you're not giving out much. So, yeah, a bit surprised that it would have been turned down. I mean, I'd like to hear what Zelfa has to say about it. Because, look, Zelfa, I think, is trying to get a fight right now, right? He hasn't fought since... When was that fight? I'm going to say it was around March. Around that time, March, April. Obviously, we're now approaching September. You know, there should be something in the pipeline for Zelfa, and so far, there isn't. So, yeah, what you guys make of that? Again, we don't know the offer. We don't know what the money was. But the fact it was offered to Zelfa before Joe, I think is quite interesting. And Joe's obviously decided to take it. I can't remember what Steve said about the money Joe's getting and Zelfa's getting, or Zelfa was offered. I don't know if it was the same or Joe's getting a bit more. I can't remember, but very interesting, right? All right, let's have a look and see what there is today. The eyes don't lie, Chico. Edgar Berlanga predicts 6-round KO of Canelo Alvarez. I love this guy's confidence. I love it. Honestly, I loved him in both press conferences. Since he's got the fight, he's speaking with his chest like really up. Love it. I love it. Look, will it all matter come fight night? I don't think it will. I think Canelo will hurt him badly. I think it will be similar to Munguia, but I think Canelo will go for the kill. When he hurt Munguia and knocked Munguia down in the fourth, I actually felt Canelo, for some reason, decided to put the reverse gears on rather than kind of go through the gears and get rid of Munguia. Maybe he felt Munguia's size. Munguia's quite big and thought, okay, there's still a bit left in this kid, even though he was hurt. I feel like once he hurts Berlanga, just because Berlanga's pissing him off, and there is this Mexican Puerto Rican thing going on, I think he's going to try and take his head off. And I think he will take his head off. All right, before we have a look and see what else there is, I did want to talk about Dillian Whyte. I always link those two for some reason. Dillian Whyte and what's going on, what's next, because right now the answers to those two things are no one knows. We have no idea. Question mark, right? He hasn't fought, and bear in mind he's been out of the ring for a while. Remember, he was supposed to fight Anthony Joshua. Before that, he fought Jermaine Franklin. So we hadn't seen him for a while. And then he came back and had this fight against Christian Hamer, right? In Ireland. Very strange, but he got some rounds in. And then you're like, okay, that was, by the way, in March. So then you're thinking, okay, he's going to come out and he's going to be active. You've been out of the ring for so long. You're just going to try and have fights. And at the moment, nothing. Like crickets, nothing. Nothing even rumored. Like sometimes, you know, you look online and there's, okay, Dillian Whyte in conversation to Dillian Whyte could fight. Nothing whatsoever, which is strange. And I don't know if this is because he's maybe behind the scenes trying to get onto a big one. Maybe the Fury Usyk card. I don't know if it's because he hasn't got a promoter aligned to him, and you know all the other promoters right now just seem to be focused on those Riyadh season cards. I don't know what the issue is, but it would be good to see Dillian Whyte back in the ring. Like I've always said that Dillian Whyte isn't the prettiest boxer, but he comes to fight. He comes to fight. Win or lose, Dillian Whyte will put on a show in the ring. Again, it's not pretty, but it's effective and it works for him. Bit like Chisora we saw against Joe Joyce. So look, and there are so many fights out there for him. Like, this is the wrong time to be inactive as a heavyweight. This is the time to be super active. I mean, there are so many fights out there for him, like ridiculous. Obviously, the obvious one is Derek Chisora. That's an obvious one. Like, Derek wants to fight 50 times. I mean, I almost feel like it would be fitting for Dillian Whyte to be the 50th, which means there's got to be one in between. I have no problem seeing that fight. Look, let me reverse that, actually. I have a problem in seeing Chisora still fight, but if Chisora is still going to fight, I have no problem with the opponent being Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's not the same killer he was before, so my fear for Chisora wouldn't be the same. Some would probably make Chisora a favourite in that fight, but that would be good. It'd be entertaining. They would sell the fight quite well. But yeah, if you are Dillian Whyte, I mean, there has to be an element of, okay, let's get this done quickly. Dillian Whyte's 36. Let's speed this process up. I mean, we've not. Let me look at Dillian Whyte's recent record. I just feel like he's not been an active heavyweight, even prior to wanting to fight AJ. Quick look. Obviously, it was the Fury fight. Okay, so since 2020, so he had one fight in 2020, Povetkin, one fight in 2021, the Povetkin rematch, which wasn't good. 2 fights in 22, Fury, Franklin, and obviously the Hamer fight that I mentioned. So since 2020, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights. Yeah, he needs to get a move on big time. He really does, because he's still got some name value. Like when you think of Dillian Whyte, you know who he is. This guy can still put bums on seats. He still got that just, but he won't have it for much longer. So whatever he's doing, he needs to do quick. And again, I wouldn't mind seeing Dillian Whyte in the ring against some of these named fighters coming up. I mean, he must look at what's going on and think, how the fuck do I get back in there? He must look at someone like a Joseph Parker, who was a bit of a slug with Joseph Parker, but, you know, he beat Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker right now is on a roll like you wouldn't believe. There was some talk about a Martin Bakody fight. Do you remember they had that incident in, I want to say it was in Poland randomly. Like it could it have been the Usyk Dubois fight, or was it before that, where Dillian Whyte's walking up the stairs and I think Bacody's trying to chase him up the stairs or something like that? That's a fight now that's really big for Whyte, not necessarily for Bakody. For Bakody, it's going backwards, but for Whyte, I mean, you take that fight now because Bacody's a name. So there are options out there for a Dillian Whyte. All right, let's have a look and see if we can wrap this up. Canelo backs Bivol to beat Benavidez. Says he did nothing at 175 pounds. Canelo backs... Yeah. Bivol beats David Benavidez. For some reason, I read that as Beterbiev. I was like, did nothing. But yeah, I think Bivol will beat Benavidez. I'm confident Bivol will beat Benavidez. In fact, I think Benavidez at 168 is the bully. At 175, I think we saw against Vosdick. Still very, very strong, but the size is gone. And Bivol's a better boxer. And Bivol's not taking punishment like Vosdick has. I mean, Vosdick retired, for God's sake, after Beterbiev, and then has slowly started to come back. So yeah, Canelo's also spoken about, by the way, that if Bivol were to beat Beterbiev, Canelo would fight Bivol. Didn't want to mention Beterbiev. Would fight Bivol. Stay away from Beterbiev. Stay away. All right, anything else before we wrap? That's kind of it. You know, there isn't much else going on at the moment in the world of boxing. I spoke to this guy. This is my interview. Guido Vianello, who beat Arslanbek Makhmudov. I says he wants AJ or any top heavyweight. He says he wants AJ in the Colosseum in Italy. I love it. I love the idea. It's not going to happen, but I love the idea of a fight in the Colosseum. Right? That's proper gladiatorial stuff. All right, guys, girls, peace and love.